Hello, everyone. It is Friday, March 2nd. This is Kops Office Hours, where we discuss all things Kops. Any question answered, any topic discussed. We do have a couple of items on the agenda. If you haven't yet done so, please do put your name on the agenda. I will repaste the link into the agenda for anyone joining. Sorry, to chat for anyone joining now. And otherwise, we can just get right into it. I think the thing that hopefully everyone noticed, and I'm sure it's been a topic of concern for some people, is that we did actually finally release Kops 1.9.0 Alpha 1, our first release of the sort of Kops 1 optimized for 1.9. It does look like there are a few sort of the issues we'd expect around some of the functionality we added and some of the edge cases around that. It doesn't look like there's anything horrific yet. And the big thing that definitely needs to happen is building a new image for Kops 1.9, which basically just means including the newer version of Docker. But it does bring up, I don't know if anyone has any other issues that they are aware of that they haven't filed or anything like that that might be critical to bring up, but I do encourage you to file issues so that we can, you know, keep it, not lose track of anything.
Well, that PR has already been cherry picked that I put in for the machinery rules into the 1.9 release branch.
Oh, sweet. So that means, which one?
So the API machinery rules were messed up, or let me back up. What are they? Let me look at the PR so I can say exactly what was done. When I was putting in the test so that we can validate API machinery, I noticed that API machinery was not correct. There was a bad merge that occurred, and some of the additions to Calico were removed. So let me pull it up. And I'll paste the pull request into here. So the ZZ generated conversion files in the alpha release are not correct for the Prometheus metrics for Calico, or for Calico. So that won't work in alpha.
Okay, well, I mean, I think we'll do an alpha 2. I'm planning on doing it like this weekend. It feels like there's like 4 or 5 issues that came up which are relatively
simple
to fix. I don't want to like try to attribute importance to them. Like there was one about where something about NATs and elastic IPs. I noticed that like subnets are always DHCP options, internet gateways, and route tables are always dirty on shared and tags. So some things which are just sort of simplish to fix that the other that merit an alpha 2, or the other thing that merits an alpha 2 is the AMI. So building an AMI and putting it into alpha 2 is on my topic for this weekend. And yeah, and so then rebuild the API machinery. That would be good. And I think one of the things I wanted to talk about was how we've tried to, in the past, so Kubernetes 1.9 was released, I guess, in December-ish, and we are now in March, just. And so there's a big delay between the Kubernetes release and the Kops release. And so to an extent, that's been deliberate in the past. We've tried to say that, when a Kops release comes out, we consider it should work, is a sort of a blunt way to put it, but we consider it like ready to go into production, or at least, your staging type environment. We don't do it with issues. We don't do it with 1.9.0 of Kubernetes. Another option we could do is, so that's uncomfortable for people, for people that then are like, well, I want to use Kubernetes 1.9. I have a dev cluster. I accept the risks type thing. Another option we could do is actually try to ship either on release day or closer to release day. The obvious peril is that we know that things won't necessarily work as well. And so Kops 1.10.0 will be the equivalent of running Kubernetes 1.10.0. We believe it to mostly work, but some things are likely broken.
I would rather release with Kops 1.10.1.
I mean, what is it? Oh, you mean with Kubernetes 110? I mean,
Close,
what does that mean?
because any critical bug fixes that they fix in that they find in 110 should be in 1.10.1. Like, dude, with what happened with the one, which was it 1.8 where they opened up auth?
Yeah. I mean, I think that happens. I mean,
It happens. I just don't want our users, no matter what you tell people, they'll be like, well, no, you released it, so you're able to run in production.
yes, but I mean, that's the same argument with Kubernetes, right? Is Kops really going to be a gatekeeper type thing here?
Yeah.
But I mean, but we get like a lot of pressure to release.
We get a lot of pressure about 2-3 weeks after. We start getting pinged on the channel about 2 or 3 weeks after the release. So if we could release, a couple weeks after the, release, or at the time of the .1 release.
Yeah, I was thinking we could do it a couple of weeks after, and we basically do it more mechanically. And we say, let's pick a number. Let's sake of argument, we say like 2 weeks after the release, we will do our 110.0, we do our first release of 110. I don't want to number it. We do our first release of Kops 110, and we'll document the errata, like the known errata, but it will be the equivalent of running 110.0, and you are still a little bit on the bleeding edge there.
Right, but Kubernetes releases on a time schedule. It doesn't release because it's stable.
Right. Well, that's not technically true. Like, they will kick features out, and they will delay to get a believed stable release. Right. It becomes more stable over time. So
I know Kops approaches it from a different perspective, in my opinion.
Okay.
We only release when we know that the sucker's stable.
Okay. So I mean, one of the things.
So
right, it sounds like.
Robin, Rodrigo, Andrew, Seth, anybody else, please. It's just Justin and me talking about this, and this is a really important conversation.
Yeah, what did the sort of end users?
My biggest thing is more releases, to be honest. We can tag it and call it whatever we want. So my biggest thing would be, even if it's just in my dev clusters, if I could just try different versions here and there. I think you're right. Both of you are right that like people come into the channel like the day after the release and they're like, I'm running Kops 1.9 with Kubernetes 1.10, and you're like, wait a second, 1.9's not even out yet. How are you doing any of this? You think you're doing stuff you're not doing. So I don't know, the more people, the more alphas, more betas, make it easier for Justin to cut them, probably is all valid things to think about, and call them whatever we call them. That's my main thoughts.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I think regarding the not wanting to be a gatekeeper too much to Kubernetes, like we don't do it with our projects. We tend to lag behind too much, actually. But I could see companies that are using Kops to roll out Kubernetes that want to get the latest version out as soon as possible, so they can just start testing it, right, and have a couple months of bake-in on their side. In that case, I think we'd want to have it as close to the Kubernetes release as possible, and leave some. We'd probably benefit from some early testing from the community in that case.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Even if we cut it as an alpha, it would be great not to have to wait a few months after a release to be able to say we have something that works with it.
So can we cut our alpha and betas at the major release mark, and then cut the GA at the .1?
I like that idea that we well, not necessarily the .1, but maybe we do exercise some judgment in terms of the GA, and we can review that in 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is. But I like the idea of cutting alphas and betas and figure out a naming scheme around that early, so that we are both clear with people that it is not entirely problem-free necessarily, but also that they're able to do it and bake it themselves. I think that was, I can't remember who said that, but yeah, like, was that you, Mike? The idea of like baking it in your own cluster. Like if you're a big org, you might want to bake it for 6 months yourself, and we want to give you the opportunity to start that baking process.
Yeah, I think my biggest thing would be, as long as we provide clarity on what alpha and beta mean, then it solves a lot of that issue of alpha. Maybe alpha is just, all right, we have a release. This might work with, Kubernetes 1.9 or 1.10. Beta might be, okay, beta might be what we call alpha now in a way. And then once it's really released, then we're really saying it's prod ready. I really actually like that like we lag behind as well. We just upgraded to 1.8. So I'm feeling pretty good about 1.8 now, but here comes 1.9. So I really like that we trust, when Kops comes out, like it's really ready. But I do think, giving people the ability to try it early is valid and valuable.
What you said's very prudent, Mike. We just need more releases. I've had an email thread going with a couple or I started with Tim and Phil. Phil's one of the steering committee member. Tim Hawken, you guys probably already know. Started an email with him again about how to get an automated release process for us, so that takes work off of Justin's hands, and we can do this and have a release. But that's probably a slow roll to get it that automated, but we should be able to get it where at least like myself or one of the other owners or maintainers, I guess we're called now, is able to cut a release.
Yeah, I mean, it is an mostly automated process on my side, mostly. The challenge is knowing when to push the button, right? And being like, can we get to a point where we believe that there's nothing outrageous in there, but we've merged in at least all the PRs that are merge ready, and like we've done a good pass of getting in the PRs that are merge ready and not like ongoing conversations. But I think we have an action item. I think that's good. I'd love to get to an automated release. I think there are people challenges as well as technical challenges, but I mean, what this could mean is it means that we start 1.10 alpha almost now, which will be confusing for me, but I will think about what that actually means and whether actually that's practical. It might be possible. It will be a weird messaging thing. And so maybe as soon as we do Kops 1.9.0 beta, then we do Kops 1.10 alpha. That might be a less crazy state of affairs.
Let's do this. Let's get 1.9 out the door GA. People really want 1.9 GA.
Okay, but I mean, I also want to.
We could release 1.9 alpha 1.9 GA and 1.10 alpha on the same day.
Yep, or we could do 1.10 alpha at the same time as 1.9 beta. But yes,
but wouldn't they basically be the exact same code in that sense?
They would, but we would stop putting features into it.
It is, but now's another conversation I get to have on releases, which I was planning on doing. So Justin, you talked about changing. So we've never cherry picked before, except for like 1.8.1 and a couple dot releases.
Well, we do cherry pick. The majority of the cherry picks happen after alpha, so they're not individual cherry picks; they're bulk cherry picks.
Exactly. So they're not individuals. They're not smaller. Most of the time, master is being rebased onto the release branch. For a lot of our releases, that's happened, where we've merged like 10, 15 PRs onto release. Correct? For the major releases.
Yeah. So we'll have cut an alpha. So at this point, like there is technically a 1.9 branch. We're likely to do 10, 20, 30 PRs before release, I would guess, right? And those will be bulk merged onto the 1.9 branch. Well, they'll merge them into master, and then I will typically like fast forward merge onto the 1.9 branch. Unless I messed up the cherry pick, in which case it will actually be a merge, but it's effectively a fast forward merge, but with a little asterisk around whether it actually is fast forward.
But we chatted in channel a bit that you wanted to change that process or change a little bit of how we've done it in the past.
I think I'm comfortable with that process. I mean, I think we want to merge. I don't know what the alternative would be.
Well, do we have guidelines on what gets merged into the release after an alpha? We don't. merged in new features into a beta in the past? Do you not want to merge in new features to the beta?
It's a judgment
That's what
call.
I'm asking.
It's a judgment call. I think we would like to not have new features. If it's an important enough feature, then we will, and we have enough time until the next release, then we will. Like, I mean, Kubernetes just alphas like from day 2, right? Or from day 1, right? They released their first alpha build or something.
Yeah. Aditya, you had a question on chat.
Which I think is a
Yes.
good suggestion.
I'm not sure what you meant.
So in the last meeting that we had, right, like last Friday, we spoke about Amazon Linux being used as an AMI, and then we wouldn't have to worry about Spectre and Meltdown and certain components. So does Kops 1.9 depend on things like the AMI being updated and those things, or do we release them in parallel, but they are not related at all? Are there certain things that we can push on other people to maintain so that Kops as the project does not have to maintain as many things, and then the releases can have lesser components, lesser moving parts, and then release faster?
I think that's a great idea. I mean, I think examining the scope of what we do is exactly what we should be doing, and I love the idea of using Amazon Linux. I think we should start by, to an extent, so we had to do an AMI in the past because of just the timelines of releases and things like that. That's less true now. The sort of, the kernels that ship in the main distros are now good enough that we can now run them, which is good. And I would love to get on to, say Debian stable is good enough, Amazon Linux is good enough, and all these sort of things, which we're not far off. I would love to, but yes, we should definitely support Amazon Linux. That would be great. Then also we might be able to say, if you want to use ENA, Amazon Linux is great. Like that would work. That would be great. And I think that's a good idea. And so I actually put that in the agenda as a good item. The other one that causes me a lot of strife is network drivers, network manifests. And we are in an unfortunate situation at the moment where a version of Kops embeds the network manifests. And so if Calico or whatever it is, I don't want to pick them, if Flannel decides they have a new network provider version that fixes an important bug, the only way to get that out is to do a new Kops release, which is a fairly bad position for us to be in. Not least because everyone has to update their Kops releases. So that's a little crazy. And I'm hoping we can do the long promised add-on manager, which actually we saw some progress on people like suggesting adding manifests. So we got that into the alpha, last minute drop in, and I'm hoping to look at whether we can actually move our manifests in some way such that you'll be able to specify, for example, that new manifest for Flannel, which would be the equivalent of what you're saying, right? So we're saying in the same way that an AMI, an Amazon Linux AMI, is maintained by someone else, updated by someone else, you reference it. Here we say, Flannel, go get the update to your Flannel, and that's not really our concern. So Amazon Linux is updated, Flannel is updated, and we're more pointers and less of a bottleneck. Or I don't know if people, I can't imagine, I don't know if anyone disagrees with that idea or wants us to, yeah. I mean, I think we're still going to have some form of this is, when you say weave, what does network weave, what does that mean in terms of where do we go to get the manifest and that sort of thing? But I would like it to be easy to at least say I want weave, I don't know what version they're on, 1.5, what's 2.5, let's say. And instead of it being a Kops update, it being just you can go get whatever version of the Weave manifest you want, or maintain your own if you want to do fancy options. I think that leads us actually into the primary roadmap items, which I've suggested as being these are the 3 things that I think are most big picture on the agenda for Kops, I guess, for the next 6 months, which are we have to fix the etcd management, and I actually wrote up a proposed roadmap for that, which is linked. But the other two are the add-on manager and trying to get us away from maintaining. We can still curate a list of add-on manifests if we want to, but I don't want it to be baked into each version of Kops.
Yeah.
So the third one is just the machine
logic needs to be. So some of the business logic needs to be baked into Kops, though. So we're going to need the manifest there, because like there's IAM rules and other stuff like that.
Yeah, there is, and it's not going to be trivial. But I mean, thinking about how this works. So, for example,
so hold on. I wasn't quite done yet. I understand your concern about the CNI providers baked in. If we release more often, I think having those manifests updated faster, I don't think is going to be as much of a challenge. And users are able to override the manifests that we have as add-ons already.
How do they do that?
What do you mean? You just install a new manifest. You update it. It's not going to downgrade the manifest if the add-on number is greater.
True, as long as you follow our numbering pattern. But then, and we will do it when we catch up. We will overwrite your change.
Yes.
Anyway. I feel like it's.
I don't think it's clean. I don't think it's as clean as it can be, but I don't think it's horribly broken either.
The other problem is that we have to then update Kops. We still have to do a Kops update, and our users have to update Kops, which is not. It becomes problematic. I think I don't know how people feel about like right now. Like the good side of us not releasing Kops very often is you don't necessarily have to update Kops that often, right? Whereas now we're talking about you would have to update Kops weekly type thing. So I'm going to close the door.
Do we have any other topics? I haven't taken a look at the agenda today. Justin, we got anything else on the agenda?
The third main topic item was the Machines API, which is sort of the third main theme. And the Machines API is essentially bringing the notion of launching a machine into the API machinery, into the Kubernetes API machinery, so that you can launch a machine by creating an API object, and it joins your cluster. And then on top of that primitive, so that's like a pod, and then on top of that primitive, they build two additional primitives, which are machine sets and machine deployments, which are like replica sets and deployments. The idea being that then, first of all, machine sets and machine deployments would be shared amongst all the various tooling. So a machine set and a machine deployment would work the same way on GKE as on Kops, as on EKS, as on AKS, as on bare metal, as on anything in theory. And it would do the correct upgrade procedure, all that sort of thing. The other thing is it would then be better integrated with tooling like cluster autoscaler. So there wouldn't be this like disconnect, I guess, between like which fields are owned by Kops and which fields are owned by the autoscaler type thing. It's a big thing. It seems to be going well. It looks like it looks like it's going well and it works well. And I have like some prototypes that bring up machines on VMware and things like that. So it's certainly impactful, and it duplicates a lot of the logic we have in terms of our rolling updates. And we want to be sure that we are coordinated with it, and likely we will end up contributing a lot of our logic to certainly our requirements to the Machines API. So I think that's the other item the three items that I think are like most important from my point of view, most important on our roadmap or big picture roadmap are like figuring out how to do etcd, figuring out how to do add-ons, and figuring out where we fit in with the Machines API.
Any other things people want to work on for 110?
Well, this is like a bigger, this is like a, not just 110, yeah.
110 or further roadmap.
Yeah, that's a great, like, are there any topics that people think, you know, Kops should generally be addressing? I have another one which I didn't put in there, which is like splitting out networking, not out of into different project, but like into a different object so that it's easier to share and maybe more like better defined where the boundary is between networking and your compute type things. Which, I mean, the Machines API will, the reason I didn't put it on there is I think the Machines API will actually drive a lot of that because we're effectively starting from the other end. So instead of taking networking and splitting it off, we're taking the machines and splitting it off. So what's left will be the infrastructure, like, which is primarily networking. The etcd one, I think I wanted to, if people haven't read it, this will likely start happening pretty soon. We have to get everyone on etcd 3 before etcd 4 comes out. We have to make sure that, I wrote an etcd manager, I think it's called, yeah, etcd manager, which basically is a sort of like the etcd operator from CoreOS, but doesn't rely on a central controller. So it can work, it's a little easier to understand in terms of bootstrapping type scenarios or failure type scenarios, hopefully. There's still some rough edges, but definitely should be easier and like it avoids the sort of you need etcd to bring up the API server to bring up etcd type problem. It defines a backup strategy, and essentially I want to introduce very soon, I split out a piece of that which basically just backs up etcd in that backup format, and very soon I want to get that turned on. I think it's already optional. I think you can turn it on. It's not very documented how, but I want to get it documented and easy to turn on, like a flag, and then on by default. The idea being that once you back up into that format, you can restore from it. You might have to use the etcd manager to restore, but then we can move people's existing data into that into the new format. You'll be allowed to store on etcd2. You might be unsupported, but there's really no reason to because it makes the upgrade to etcd3 pretty easy. So the proposed upgrade strategy is backups from today's infrastructure into the new format, and then when you want to upgrade, you probably switch to the etcd manager, which will then restore your backup and enable you to move between version 2 and version 3 and any other versions that come along, and subversions and resize your cluster and all this sort of magic stuff.
Yeah, I'd love to see some more documentation around that because I would love to try this in alpha. I've been dealing with etcd backups, so.
Yes, the backups are pretty easy. It's more the restore that's hard, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Unless I can restore backups or almost right, so.
Yeah, so actually, yeah, I mean, I'd love to have you have a look at the etcd manager. I'll put a link into the etcd manager project, which basically, where did it go? It's in the roadmap anyway, but the etcd manager is here, and it automates the restore. It automates the backups. If you use etcd manager, it automates the restore. I don't have a standalone restore component yet, but that could be interesting as well for people that want. Anyway, it could be interesting as well.
If I can recreate a cluster and restore with etcd manager, that works great for me. I'll just have to try that out.
Yeah, you can. It's still the challenge right now is making sure that when you don't have an API server that's coordinating it, that you only bring up one etcd cluster, for example, right? So they sort of like gossip and self-elect a leader, and there is a known issue right now where if you have 6 nodes running the etcd manager, you can form 2 clusters of size 3. So that isn't stopped, that isn't blocked. Technically, I guess if you have 4 nodes running the etcd manager, you can form 2 clusters of size 4. So we need like some form of locking 2 clusters of size 2. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But that needs to get fixed, and there'll be some form of external locking or good enough locking.
Okay.
Yeah, contribution is very welcome. That'd be great.
Sounds good. I'll talk to you more offline about that. But yeah,
cool.
As I'm testing it.
Awesome. And yeah, I'm hoping that the backups will be basically a no-brainer for everyone, and that everyone should have backups. I don't know how many people have backups, and it's fairly inexpensive to do. Chris, you have an item, API Kops to not create internet gateway.
Yes. So I think this is the one API item that you and I, Justin, haven't quite resolved yet. You recommended having a field on the subnet egress as provided. So there's two things. First off, not create a route table and not.
Do you want to give a little bit of background first on what the topic is? Well,
basically, there are multiple users, or this has been a long request from a lot of different folks for Kops not to create an internet gateway and not update the route table, or the route table in egress value for subnet. So we don't add a route task and we don't create the internet gateway. So those two things.
Chris, you're teeing me up here. Okay, I mean, all right.
So Justin and I have been talking about on a PR on the API for this. Justin, you're recommending a value on egress?
On the egress field on the subnet that says don't create the egress route for the subnet, yes. So
okay, so for the subnet.
But I was suggesting.
Now, would we have, what about the internet gateway then? Because internet gateway is one-to-one, right? We create it or we don't.
Yeah, I was thinking we would create it if there was a subnet that was not marked, that needed an internet gateway, then we would create it. If there was no need to create it, we would not create it. So essentially, provided or external or whatever name this is means don't do this. I want to do an internet gateway. I want to do a VPN gateway. I
got you. I understand what you're saying. I got a question though, because we don't have any other object. I don't think we have any other object like that AWS object that we don't create because we don't need it. So what we're doing is we're taking the API and we're putting in business logic and not being explicit in the API that we don't require this. So I like what you're saying on the route, because that's directly linked to the subnet. So what I would say is that the subnet, we have egress is provided. We don't create a route for that subnet. And then we also have another API value that says do not create the internet gateway.
I just don't know why we need the.
It's explicit. Or is it explicit or implicit? It's one of the two. I don't like hand wavy business logic in the background suddenly not creating crap.
I mean the NAT gateway logic, right? We only create a NAT gateway when things are private.
Yeah, private is a value in the API.
Right, but it doesn't.
Explicit in the API that this topology is being created. Just a thought.
Why don't we start with it implicit and then we can make it explicit later?
Because we won't do that. I want to get the API agreed upon and then just do it. If you don't want it and you want me to do it business logic wise, I can, but I would prefer not. That's, I'm not married to it. I'll definitely have to document what's happening.
It feels to me like you would want a subnet where you basically say on a per subnet level, we don't create things. We don't deal with your networking for this subnet. You're going to take care of that subnet. That feels like that would cover a lot of the use cases. And I don't know why we would create a gateway if we didn't need it.
Hey, Rodrigo, I know you guys have really complex networking. That's why I'm going to bug you.
Yep.
You guys have multiple internet gateways on a VPC?
Yeah, we do.
Okay. So we have to do what you said in terms about egress, Justin, because theoretically you could have subnets that have a different IGW.
Yep. Each AZ has a different IGW. So.
Wow, that's special.
Yeah.
Is that faster or something, or should we be doing that?
Mostly for segregation, security, and
okay.
Yeah.
Ask your network guru why they did that.
I will.
No, we're serious, because if we can improve, if we should have more than one IGW, I don't think they cost anything, do they? Anybody know if internet gateways cost?
They're free. There might be a quote on them, but they're free.
No. But yeah, if you could check with your crazy network people, that'd be awesome. Crazy good. I don't know if they're crazy or just crazy good. As
I'm not even sure if the person that did that is here anymore, but I'll look around.
That's funny. Does anybody else use multiple internet gateways in a VPC? Nope. Didn't think so. Peter, do you guys use more? No. So Justin, do you want me to put in the business logic that if everything is provided, we don't create an IGW?
To me, I feel like the only reason we don't have that logic right now is because you always need an IGW today. Because even when you're using NAT gateways, you actually still need an IGW.
You don't always need an IGW today.
For the configurations we define, you do.
Yes. This is a feature we need.
Yes, I mean, I would be very happy with having it be a subnet where you say, like, I'm going to do networking for this subnet, and when you set it for those subnets, we basically have no reason to mess with it.
Do we want to use the egress field, or do we want to use another field for that? Well, no, it is the egress field, because we're setting that egress field's being read, right?
It's both egress and ingress in the case of internet gateway. Is that true? I don't even know if that's true.
No, egress is not through the IGW.
Okay, cool. So that's good.
I'm sorry. Egress is not through the NAT gateway. Ingress is. So I'm really confused. Outbound traffic doesn't get natted. Outbound traffic goes directly to the IGW, unless I'm wrong.
Anyway, I feel like it would be we can look at this again. I feel like it would be nice to have something that's more just like leave my whole subnet alone. So let's look at what's left other than if I just set, so you suggested network required gateway. If we set network required gateway, let's find out what additional changes are made to the subnet, etc.
Yeah. Maybe we can let everybody go and work this out, but take this offline. But your API is not making sense to me because I'm looking at the route. The route is the public route table and the internet gateway, which has nothing to do with the private networks and has nothing to do with the NAT gateway. So the value that goes in there could still be that. I don't know.
Let's look at the Terraform output when this field flips. How about that? I don't know if there's no way to do a test on this, which is unfortunate. Why don't you temporarily flip one of the other integration tests so that we can see the effect on the Terraform output?
I'll just add this to the complex integration test.
Sure, yeah. Because then we'll see exactly what changes. I mean, I just don't know if the complex actually already uses one of these other ones, right?
Or I'll find one of the ones that uses NAT.
Or doesn't. Oh, so this would be used with NAT.
With or without.
Okay.
So the use case that I have is public networked. We don't have NAT in the at the bank. We don't use NAT gateways. We just don't want to create an IGW. Everything is public networks, but it's on a private IP space, and there's no public IPs on the instances. Then everything goes back through Direct Connect.
Direct Connect. Okay.
So the route table can't be created, the route table can't be updated, and IGW can't be created. Oh, on the topic of route table, I'll put in an issue. We got to mention about tags, because we're now tagging 3 more items that everybody's going to see in 1.9. The HCP options, the route table, and the internet gateway are all being tagged now.
Right, and that's the one. That's one of the minor issues where just like they are always dirty.
Yeah.
Good. Is there anything else on the? Anyone else wants to talk about?
I think we're also tagging EIPs now as well.
We are. Those have there's a different issue there with, I think, upgrades with EIPs, but
Yeah.
or NAT gateways. But that was yeah.
Now, I just wanted to say thanks real quickly to Robin, Mike, and Rodrigo. You guys are helping out great with PRs. Appreciate it. There's a month left in the mentoring program, so it's almost done. And I'm, yeah, still assigning them to them and getting them knocked out. It's great to have you guys review it first.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's really helpful.
Happy to help.
Does everyone get 14 minutes back? All right. Happy Friday, everybody.
Have a good weekend.
Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.